I became my sister's ghost to destroy her lover. The room was too quiet, too perfect. Cool jasmine drifted from the curtains, mingling with the faint scent of polished marble, and something metallic, something that shouldn't be there. I blinked against the morning light pouring in through tall, arched windows. My skin prickled. My heartbeat wasn't mine. I sat up slowly. Silk sheets clung to me, unfamiliar against my thighs. The fabric of the white nightgown rustled like someone else's voice. My hands trembled as I brought them to my face. No scars on my knuckles. Nails manicured. Fingers longer, more graceful. This wasn't my body. I stumbled out of bed and nearly collapsed. The floor was freezing, the tiles too smooth underfoot. I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror across the room, and froze. It was her. Long dark hair cascading in perfect waves. Pale, unblemished skin. A beauty mark just below the right eye. The face I'd grown up resenting, admiring, hating. Clara, my sister. I backed away from the mirror so fast I knocked over a stool. It crashed loudly to the floor, but no one came running. Was I dreaming? Had I lost my mind? No, this was too clear. The textures, the smells, the tight coil of dread in my gut. This wasn't a dream. And that face looking back at me, her face, moved when I moved, but in the moment I blinked, it didn't. I pressed a hand to my chest. I felt a heartbeat, steady, strong, not mine. I remembered her funeral, the casket, the whispered condolences, my mother's blank stare, and his hand on my shoulder, firm, cold, like he was holding me in place. And then, his face, the last thing Clara saw before she died. I knew because I saw it too. The door opened behind me. I turned so fast my vision spun. He stood there like a statue carved out of charm and power. Ewan Laviere, my sister's fiancé, my sister's murderer. He wore a charcoal vest and open cuffs, his sleeves rolled to his elbows. Sharp jawline, hazel eyes that looked like truth but tasted like poison. Ivy, no. Clara, he said with a soft, delighted smile. You're up, his voice. That polished, polite tone. I'd heard it lie through 1,000 dinners, 1,000 perfect evenings. The same voice that had whispered to Clara that he loved her, that she'd believed, that I once almost believed myself. I tried to speak, but the name Ivy clogged in my throat. He crossed the room casually, like this was normal, like this was love. You were sleeping so deeply, he said, brushing hair from my face. I didn't want to wake you. His touch burned. I flinched, but not fast enough. He leaned in, lips grazing my temple. You look like you've seen a ghost, he chuckled softly. If only he knew. I stiffened. Every instinct screamed to shove him away, to scream, to tear the truth from the walls of this sterile mausoleum of a bedroom. But my lips moved on their own. I had a strange dream, I murmured, barely recognizing the voice that came out. You'll feel better after breakfast, he said, backing away just enough. Your mother is expecting you downstairs. My mother? Right, because to the world Clara Laviere had survived. Only I knew. Clara was gone, and I had taken her place. But why? How? I pressed a hand to my temple once he left the room, shutting the door behind him with quiet finality. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But something stronger than panic held me in place. It curled around my spine like ice. I'd seen his face that night. I was in the garden when I heard her scream. I saw his shadow on the balcony. Then silence. Then her body, lying below, lifeless, crumpled like she'd never been real. The police said it was an accident. The family called it a tragic fall. But I know what I saw. And now, I'm here. In her skin. In her life. With him. It isn't just revenge. It's justice. And it starts with making him fall in love with her all over again. So I can ruin him. The Laviere estate looked exactly as I remembered it. Timeless, cold, and terrifyingly grand. It was the kind of house that made you whisper even when you were alone. Every portrait on the wall watched. Every marble tile echoed judgment. Even the dust, if there had been any, would have carried secrets. I descended the main staircase slowly, one hand trailing the banister. Clara's legs were longer than mine, her balance more practiced. I could already tell I didn't walk like her. Not yet. "Miss Clara," came a gentle voice to my left. I turned too sharply. A thin, elderly woman stood just beyond the hallway. Gray hair in a tight bun, lace collar buttoned to the throat, hands folded so tightly they looked sewn together. "Marietta," I said before I could second-guess myself. Her eyes narrowed, just for a second. "You forgot your ring," she said, lifting a delicate gold band on a velvet cloth. "You never go anywhere without it." I forced a smile. Must have slipped my mind. She studied me for a breath too long, then bowed slightly and stepped back. I watched her go, a quiet chill racing down my spine. She was observant, too observant. I would have to be careful with her. The dining hall was already bustling. Crystal clinked against porcelain. The sound of forced laughter filled the air, along with the faint smell of roasted figs and vanilla tea. Dozens of eyes turned as I entered. All smiles, all fake. "Darling, you look radiant," purred a woman in an emerald dress, brushing air kisses against my cheeks. Another man, someone I didn't recognize, leaned in and whispered, "We were so worried after everything, but you're clearly back to your old self." I nodded, offering a carefully rehearsed smile. "Just needed some rest, that's all." It felt like a performance, each line coming out stiff, unnatural. I mimicked Clara's poise, her posture, her habit of resting her fingertips on the rim of her glass when she didn't want to answer a question. But I knew I was slipping. Little things, like the way I stirred my tea counterclockwise. She always did clockwise. Marietta noticed. I caught her watching from the hall. And Ewan, he never left my side. He placed a possessive hand on the small of my back, his touch both steadying and suffocating. "You're holding up well," he murmured into my ear, his breath warm and entirely too close. "I'm not porcelain," I replied, trying to sound teasing, but the tightness in my voice made it sound brittle. He smiled like he didn't hear it, or chose not to. "Of course you're not. You're Clara Laviere," he said, as if that name alone made me bulletproof, as if it still meant anything. I excused myself halfway through dessert, chest tight, throat dry, and retreated to Clara's room. My room, no, her room. The scent hit me the moment I entered. Jasmine and smoke, the perfume she wore, the candles she never let burn to the end. I searched the vanity drawers out of instinct, not even sure what I was looking for. A letter, a diary, a confession. Instead, I found a folded slip of paper tucked inside the lining of a velvet jewelry box. Hidden, not lost. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, bold and fast, like she wrote it in a panic. "He knows. Watch Eliza." My stomach flipped. Eliza. One of Clara's closest friends, practically glued to her at parties, events, every family gathering. And he knows. Who? Ewan. My fingers trembled as I refolded the note. 100 possibilities swarmed my head, each darker than the last. What did Clara know before she died? Who was watching her? And worse, what if I wasn't the only one pretending? The garden hadn't changed. Roses still climbed the wrought iron trellises like silent witnesses, pale and perfect. The stone benches were cold and untouched. A trimmed hedge formed a wall between the house and the outer forest, just as it always had. But something in the air was off, thicker, like the garden remembered things I'd tried to forget. I walked slowly down the gravel path, my footsteps muffled by moss. My hand trailed along the low stone wall, and then a memory hit me like a slap, not a dream, not imagination, a memory. It was late afternoon, 3 days before Clara died. The sky was copper gold, the same as now. I had come out for air, unnoticed as usual. I was always invisible at these things. Family brunches where everyone smiled with teeth too white and voices too loud. That's when I saw them. Clara and Ewan. In the far corner of the garden, by the marble fountain. I'd frozen behind the hedge, unseen. "You're not listening," Clara's voice snapped, sharp as broken glass. "I'm not doing this anymore." Ewan stood too still. His arms were crossed. "You're being emotional." That was his favorite word when he didn't want to deal with her feelings. Or anyone's. "I'm being rational for once," Clara hissed. "You think you can lie to me and I'll just smile and nod like always?" He took a step closer to her. "You promised." "I lied," she shot back. "Just like you did." Then silence. I saw her wipe a tear angrily from her cheek with the back of her hand. "You're not going to ruin everything we built, Clara," Ewan said in a low, menacing tone. This life, it's bigger than just you and me." She flinched, and for the first time I saw it, fear in her eyes. Then came the moment I'd replayed 100 times since. She slammed her hand down on the stone ledge next to the fountain. "You think I care about your empire? I care about truth. You think you can control me? You can't even control yourself." Something cracked in him. It didn't show on his face, but I felt it from where I stood. Then, just as suddenly, she turned and stormed away, heels crunching against gravel. Ewan didn't follow. He just watched her go, like he was memorizing the way she walked, or maybe saying goodbye. That was the last time I saw them together. The present came rushing back. I was standing at that same fountain now, and I wasn't alone. There was a sound, soft, like movement, somewhere beyond the hedge. I turned, heart thumping. "Who's there?" Silence. But I wasn't imagining it. Someone had been watching, just like I had that day. I walked to the hedge and pushed through the leaves, and saw a footprint in the dirt. Small, delicate, a woman's shoe. Recent, Eliza. The thought came instantly. It had to be her. She always lingered close to drama, even when pretending she wasn't. She had a way of appearing just in time to not hear something, but always know enough. She'd been there that day too, hadn't she? Maybe she hadn't stepped out from the shadows. Maybe she hadn't said anything. But she'd been watching, just like me, and maybe she'd seen more than I did. I bent down and touched the print. The soil was still soft, fresh, which meant someone was watching me now. The cafe was quiet, almost suspiciously so. Mid-morning light filtered through dusty windows, cutting long lines across the wooden floors. It smelled of cinnamon and anxiety. I chose the corner table, Clara's favorite spot. She used to bring Eliza here weekly, sometimes more. They called it their truth booth, which I always found ironic even then. Now, the booth felt like a trap. I kept my hands wrapped tightly around the cup of tea in front of me. My reflection wavered in the rippling surface, unfamiliar and flawless. And then she arrived. Eliza. She looked thinner, nervous. Her once glossy brown hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her eyes darted around the cafe before settling on me. "Hi," she said, voice brittle. "Eliza," I greeted, hoping my voice was steady. It came out smoother than I expected. That scared me. She sat across from me without ordering anything. Her fingers twisted a gold ring on her right hand again and again. Her eyes flicked to mine, then quickly away. "You wanted to talk," I said. She swallowed. "You said we needed to. After everything." I tilted my head, watching her squirm. "You mean after I died?" Her breath hitched. I smiled slightly. "Relax. It's a joke, sort of." Eliza leaned in, lowering her voice. "Do you remember what you said to me the last time we talked?" "I've been trying to," I replied honestly. Her hands gripped the table edge. "You said you knew, about Ewan, about everything." My pulse jumped, but I kept my face still. "And you said you were going to ruin us, that you had proof, then you disappeared." then the accident. She looked away, biting her lip. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Mean to what? I leaned in. How long had it been going on? Eliza went pale. You remember? I didn't. But now I did. I remembered the way she used to look at him when she thought no one noticed. The way her laughter always rang louder when he was around. The way Clara once said, "You think I don't see it?" Eliza nodded slowly, her voice hoarse. It started before your engagement. I thought he was going to leave you. He said you weren't really in love with him, that you didn't want marriage, that it was all your parents doing. A bitter laugh bubbled up in my throat, but I swallowed it. Of course he did. That was what Ewan did. He rearranged truth like a magician shuffling cards. And you believed him, I said flatly. I wanted to believe him. Eliza's voice cracked. But then, you told me you knew, that you weren't going to keep quiet anymore. You were done playing nice. She looked at me with something close to horror. You were furious. I'd never seen you like that. You said you were going to burn it all down. And now she looked afraid of me, or of the person she thought I was. I sat back, letting that sink in. Clara had known. She'd confronted Eliza. She'd threatened to expose them both. But why hadn't she done it? Why disappear, unless she was silenced? I didn't think you'd really do it, Eliza whispered. But then you vanished. They said you fell. But I thought maybe Ewan. She trailed off. I said nothing. Because she wasn't wrong. She glanced toward the door like she was ready to flee. You shouldn't have called me. I shouldn't be here. She grabbed her purse and stood abruptly. Please, Clara, just let it go. Let us go. I stood too, not angrily, slowly, controlled. I met her eyes with the calm I didn't feel. Oh, Eliza, I said gently, you have no idea what I've let go. And what I'm still holding. She froze for just a beat before rushing out of the cafe. Heels clicking against tile, echoing like guilt. I watched her go. Then I sat down again, sipping my now cold tea. So Clara had known. She'd been planning something. But what had stopped her? Had she hesitated? Or had he? The bathroom lights buzzed faintly overhead as I twisted the faucet. Water gushed out, steaming quickly over the marble sink. I stared at my reflection, waiting for it to feel real. It didn't. I leaned in. Clara's face looked back, flawless, calm, composed. But something was off. My lips felt dry, my eyes a little too wide. I blinked. So did she. But a half-second too late. I froze. It had been subtle, barely a breath of delay. But I saw it. I felt it. That wasn't a trick of light or fatigue. It was real. Her reflection wasn't mine, not anymore. I touched my cheek. She did the same, but not exactly together, like a puppet missing its strings. I turned the faucet off, gripping the edge of the sink, breath coming faster. My skin tingled, prickled. I looked at my hands, hers, and suddenly they felt like gloves, too smooth, too clean. The air shifted. There was a sound, soft like a whisper, but not a word I could understand. It wasn't outside the room. It was inside me, or just behind my ear, like breath against skin. I spun around. Nothing. My heartbeat pounded in my throat. Then I saw it. Clara's necklace, still around my neck, was glowing faintly. The gold chain, once cool and elegant, now burned against my collarbone. I clawed at it, trying to undo the clasp, but it wouldn't move. It wasn't just tight. It was alive. Get off me, I hissed. The mirror shimmered again. I turned back toward it slowly. My reflection stood exactly as I did. And yet, not. Her eyes looked deeper, darker, more knowing. Her lips curled, just slightly, into a smile I wasn't making. No, I said, that's not me. The lights above flickered. Once. Twice. Behind me, something fell. I whipped around. One of the glass perfume bottles had slid off the shelf and shattered on the floor. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't moved. I backed away from the sink. My breath misted in the air, even though the water had been hot. The room was suddenly cold, freezing. My toes were numb against the tile. And then, the voice, whispered, familiar, not mine. "I'm still here." I spun again, scanning the room. My pulse thundered in my ears. "Who's there?" I demanded, voice shaking. No answer. Only the soft drip of the faucet, and the mirror, glowing faintly around the edges. I turned back, and this time the reflection was smiling. I wasn't. I stumbled forward and slammed my palms against the glass. "I'm not Clara." For a heartbeat, nothing. Then her mouth moved. "But you want to be me." The voice echoed in my skull, not my ears. It wasn't just sound, it was inside. My stomach turned. "No," I whispered. "No, I never wanted." "You wore my clothes, spoke my words, took my face. Don't pretend you didn't want it." The lights burst. The bathroom went black. Shards of mirror crackled beneath my feet, though I hadn't moved. The necklace seared into my skin, a hot line of fire. I reached for the door. It was locked. I hadn't locked it. "Stop it!" I screamed, clutching my head. "You're dead. I'm not you." The whisper came again, softer now, sadder. "Then why did you come back?" The door swung open behind me without warning. Light spilled in from the hallway, warm, golden, and in the mirror, everything looked normal again. No crack, no glow, no voice, just me, just Clara. I stood frozen for a long time. Then I stepped out of the bathroom, the scent of jasmine and smoke clinging to my skin like regret. The night air on the terrace was sharp and clean, laced with the faint scent of burning wood and something sweeter, like crushed petals. I wrapped Clara's shawl around my shoulders, though it did little to stop the chill crawling under my skin. It was nearly midnight. The rest of the house was asleep, or pretending to be. The lights behind me were dimmed. The only glow came from the crescent moon, silver and sharp. I stepped onto the stone tiles slowly, carefully, as if retracing steps that had already been taken. Because they had. This was where she'd died. The official story was simple. Clara had gone outside during a party, alone, for some air. A slip of the heel, a loose tile, a tragic fall. But nothing about Clara's life, or death, was ever simple. I walked to the edge of the balcony and looked down. The garden below was quiet, the same fountain, the same hedge, but now I could see it from above. How far the fall really was, how easily it could have been staged. And there, just beneath the balcony, growing out of the gravel like defiance, a single red rose, still alive, untouched by gardeners, blooming perfectly, impossibly, right where her body had landed. I leaned over the railing, my pulse quickened, and suddenly, I remembered, she was wearing white, a silk dress that moved like water. Her hair was pinned back. Her lips were red, like always when she wanted to feel powerful. Ewan stood across from her. He was furious but composed. Always composed. "You think this scares me?" Clara said, stepping closer to him. "You think I won't do it?" Ewan's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," she snapped. She held something in her hand. Papers? A phone. I couldn't tell. "I'm done playing house. I'm done protecting your image. You lied, to me, to Eliza, to everyone. Put it down, Clara, or what? You'll push me?" A pause. Then, "I built this life with you," he said coldly. "You're not going to ruin it." "You already did," she whispered. Her voice cracked, just barely. She took a step back toward the railing. His hand reached out, fast, or did he push? I couldn't tell, but her eyes widened in that final second, not with fear, with shock. And then she was falling. The memory shattered as quickly as it came. I gasped, stumbling back from the edge. Had I really seen it? Or had Clara shown it to me? I pressed my hand to the stone wall for balance. My breath steamed in the air. The shawl slipped off my shoulders and pooled at my feet like a shadow. I turned to go, but something on the bench caught my eye. A leather-bound journal, weather-worn but intact. I picked it up slowly. The initials Kell, embossed on the cover in gold, Clara Evelyn Laviere. My hands trembled as I flipped it open. Most of the pages were empty, torn out, erased. But one entry remained, written in rushed, slanted script, like she had scribbled it in the dark. If I disappear, don't trust Ivy. She always wanted to be me. My throat closed. I stared at the words until they blurred. That wasn't true. Was it? No. Clara had been angry, paranoid. She was spiraling. That wasn't truth. That was fear speaking, or maybe guilt. But the seed was planted now, and it was growing. What if I had wanted this, her room, her face, her name? What if I wasn't just wearing her life, but stealing it? Behind me, the wind shifted. A whisper trailed across the back of my neck. See? Even she knew. The bedroom was too quiet, the kind of quiet that made you hear things. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, palms pressed against my temples. My heartbeat was a metronome of panic. The journal still lay on the floor, half open to the damning sentence. Don't trust Ivy. She always wanted to be me. That line had looped in my mind all evening, louder than anything else. It wasn't like before. Not a whisper anymore. It had weight now. Intention. Like something standing just behind my skin. You were nothing without me. I flinched. It wasn't coming from the room. It was inside my head. You watched. You waited. You wanted it. You wore my face the moment you could... Stop it, I muttered, squeezing my eyes shut. You think you're better than me? You think they'll love you now? Shut up, I said louder. But the room didn't respond. The voice did. You'll never be me. But you'll die trying. Suddenly my hands were moving, without thought, without consent. I stood, walked to the vanity, opened the drawer, and there, cold and gleaming in the candlelight, a letter opener, ornate, gold-handled, sharp. I picked it up, and only then realized what I was doing. My fingers gripped it tight. My reflection stared back from the mirror, wide-eyed, breathless. Not scared exactly, but empty. Why am I holding this? I whispered. No answer. I stepped back, dropped the blade to the floor with a sharp metallic clink. Then... Clara! I turned. Ewan stood in the doorway, shirt unbuttoned at the throat, his face pale in the flickering hallway light. He looked at the knife. Then at me. His voice was slow. Careful, you're not her. My mouth went dry. What are you talking about? He took one step forward. That look in your eyes, the way you breathe, the way you speak. You're not Clara, you're something else. I couldn't lie. Not convincingly, not anymore. I saw the way you looked at me in the garden, he said, voice thick. You hated me. He came closer, and I didn't move. I don't know who you are, he said, but you're not the woman I loved. There it was. Loved, past tense. Something shattered quietly inside me. But his expression surprised me. He wasn't angry, he was afraid. And yet, he didn't back away. He stepped within arm's reach, searching my face. What did you do to her? He asked. I opened my mouth, then shut it, because I didn't have an answer, not one I trusted anymore. Maybe I hadn't taken her place. Maybe I had become her. Or maybe I had always wanted to. What if it's true? I whispered. What if I did destroy her? His brows furrowed. What are you saying? I don't know who I am anymore. I turned away, trembling, holding myself. The voice inside me was silent now, smug, like it had nothing more to say. It didn't need to. It had already planted the doubt. Ewan's study was the only warm room in the house. The rest of the Laviere estate seemed to shiver under the weight of its secrets. But here, between the soft leather chairs, amber-toned lamps and shelves lined with real books, there was a false sense of safety. I didn't trust it. Or him. Still, I sat. He poured 2 fingers of scotch into a glass and slid it across the desk toward me. I didn't touch it. You said you wanted answers, he said, voice quiet. I want truth, I replied. He sank into the chair opposite mine, rested his elbows on the desk, and looked tired for the first time since I'd returned in Clara's skin. She wasn't what you think, he said. Clara, my heart thudded once. She knew how to play people. And she loved to do it. I said nothing. She used Eliza like a mirror, he continued. Told her just enough to keep her close, but always dangled more. She knew about us, about Eliza and me, and she made sure Eliza knew that she knew. I frowned. Why wouldn't she say something? She wanted leverage, he said simply. She was collecting it. She recorded phone calls, took screenshots, saved every whispered confession Eliza made. I found some of it after... He paused. After she died. My fingers curled around the glass I hadn't meant to touch. Why? She said she'd expose us, that she'd ruin me, ruin Eliza. Her exact words were, I made you and I can unmake you. I stared at him. It didn't sound like the sister I thought I knew, but then again, I hadn't really known her, had I? She was always just a step ahead, a room apart. A perfect smile away. She told me she wanted out, he said, of everything. The wedding, the house, the family name. But not before she watched us fall. He leaned forward. She was angry. Not just at me. At you, too. That stopped me. What? He nodded slowly. She said you were always watching her. That you resented her. That you wanted her life. I felt the burn rise in my throat. She said that? She wrote it, he said, rising from his chair. He moved to the drawer behind him and pulled out a folder. Slim, clean. He dropped it on the table, read it. I opened it, hands stiff. Photographs, notes, Clara's handwriting. Some were just phrases. Eliza equal to weak. Ewan lies so easily. Record next call. Ivy. Watching again. Doesn't know I see her. Another paper. If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. But they'll believe Ivy before they believe me. My chest tightened. Was this real? Had she truly been afraid of me? You think I'm lying, Ewan said. I think I don't know anything anymore, I snapped. He sat again, more carefully this time. I loved her, he said. Or maybe I loved the idea of her. I don't know what's true anymore either. But Clara, your sister, she was not innocent. The words hit harder than I expected. Because maybe, deep down, I had never believed she was. She had ruled every room she walked into. She had drawn people in like gravity. And I had always stood in her shadow, quietly grateful for whatever scraps she allowed me. Had I mistaken that for love? I looked down at my reflection in the glass. Clara's face, my hand, my voice. Do you know who she really was? Ewan asked softly. I looked up and asked the question that had been tightening around my ribs since the moment I woke up in her skin. Do you? He didn't answer. So I did. No. Because neither of us had ever truly known her. And worse, I was starting to wonder if I had ever truly known myself. If I had let her shape me, define me, eclipse me for so long, then who was I without her? Just a ghost pretending to be a woman who no longer existed. The old chapel stood at the edge of the estate grounds, half swallowed by ivy and time. They called it a private family sanctuary, though no one in the Laviere line had set foot in it for years, except Clara, and now me. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors. They creaked like something ancient breathing for the first time in decades. Dust danced in shafts of moonlight. Stained glass windows cast bruised colors on the stone floor. I stepped inside, clutching a worn piece of parchment I'd found in Clara's drawer. Something like a ritual, a cleansing, a banishment. Not of ghosts exactly, but of echoes. I set a small mirror on the altar and lit the candles around it, one by one. The flames flickered like they were struggling to stay alive, just like me. Okay, I whispered. Let's finish this. My hands trembled as I spoke the words aloud. Latin, or something like it. The syllables were rough in my mouth, but I pushed through, heart pounding. Spiritum qui non passem invenit. Ego te voco. Nothing happened. The mirror stayed still. The air held its breath. Then, a flicker. The flame nearest the mirror extinguished on its own. Cold crept up my spine. Clara, hair down, white dress, barefoot, smiling. But it wasn't warm. It was cruel. You always needed help to be strong, she said, lips moving only in the glass. I just gave you what you wanted. I backed away from the altar. You're not real. You're just a part of me. I am you, she whispered. The part you buried so deep, it came clawing back when you saw your chance. My hands curled into fists. You were the one who lied, manipulated, hurt people. She tilted her head. And you loved watching me do it. I shook my head. I never wanted your life. Her smile widened. You followed me like a shadow, copied my voice, my style, my steps. You say you hated me, but you were always waiting to be me. No, you think wearing my skin makes you better? It makes you desperate. Stop it. You want to be seen, Ivy? Fine. I'll show them all who you really are. Suddenly, the mirror shattered outward. The candles blew out in a burst of invisible wind. I was thrown to the ground, a deep, cold pressure pressing against my chest. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Whispers circled me, Clara's voice over and over, layering on top of itself like 1,000 knives. You're nothing without me. You were born in my shadow. You should have stayed dead. No, I screamed. I'm not you. I was never you. The necklace, Clara's necklace, burned against my collarbone. Hot, radiant, like it was trying to root into my bones. I gripped it with both hands and pulled. It wouldn't come off. This is mine, her voice shrieked. I don't want it anymore. With everything I had, I yanked once, twice, and on the third try the chain snapped. A blinding flash of light erupted through the chapel, slamming me back against the cold floor. The sound was like a scream and silence at once. Then, stillness. No whispers. No pressure. Just me. Alone. I lay there, breathing hard, the broken chain curled in my hand like a dead thing. The mirror was gone, shards scattered like stars across the altar. The air smelled clean again, as if something had finally left. The morning sun filtered through the curtains like it didn't know anything had changed. But everything had. The house was silent, too silent. Not tense like it had been the past week, but still, as if it had finally exhaled. Ewan was gone. He'd left sometime before dawn. I found a note on the kitchen counter with a single sentence written in clean masculine script. I need to forget you to remember her. He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. Eliza hadn't returned any of my calls. Not that I expected her to. I didn't even know what I would have said. Sorry felt hollow. I understand would have been worse. So I was alone. And for the first time, that didn't feel like a punishment. The body I inhabited no longer resisted me. No tightness in my chest. No fire on my skin. My limbs moved naturally now, like they belonged to me. I stood barefoot in the hallway, trailing my fingers along the wall as I passed the old family portraits. Clara's smile followed me from canvas to canvas, frozen in oil and time, but there was no longer a voice behind the smile, no whisper in my head, no reflection out of sync. I pushed open the door to my bedroom. The air still held the scent of jasmine, but fainter now, like it was finally fading. The mirror on the vanity was cracked in one corner from where I'd thrown something earlier that week. I couldn't even remember what, but the rest was intact. I stood in front of it and looked. What I saw wasn't Clara. Not entirely, not anymore. There were shadows under my eyes, a small scar just below my lip. Mine, not hers. My posture had changed, less perfect, more real. This was me now. Not Ivy the forgotten little sister, not Clara the flawless illusion, just me. I leaned in, pressing my fingertips lightly to the glass. For once, my reflection moved exactly when I did. Then I saw it. Just to the right of the mirror, scrawled faintly on the pale wall in something barely darker than dust. I don't know how I hadn't seen it before. Maybe I wasn't supposed to. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. Clara's. Now live. Don't repeat. 4 words. Barely a breath, a warning, a release, maybe both. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because after everything, she had finally let me go. Or maybe I had finally let her go. I walked to the window and opened it wide. The wind was soft and warm. A bird landed briefly on the sill, then darted away again. The world had kept turning through all of it. But today, I was finally stepping into it. Not as someone else's echo, not as someone's ghost, but as the woman who had survived them both. The train hummed beneath me like a lullaby I didn't need. Outside the window, the landscape shifted, fields to forests, small towns to empty skies. I sat with a paper coffee cup in my hands, sleeves rolled up, no jewelry, no makeup, no mask. For the first time in years, I wasn't pretending to be anyone. Not Clara, not the version of Ivy she expected, just me. I reached into my bag and pulled out a letter, folded carefully, sealed with nothing more than tape. The name on the front, Eliza. I hadn't planned to write it. The words had come late last night, scribbled in a single sitting. No rewrites, no filter. I reread it once more before mailing it at the next station. Eliza, I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even sure I deserve understanding. But you deserve truth. I wasn't a saint. But I wasn't her either. I stepped into Clara's skin and thought I could fix what she broke, or maybe punish who broke her. Maybe both, but I learned something in the end. We don't escape our shadows by wearing someone else's. We burn brighter by becoming our own light. You knew a version of her that was beautiful and cruel and unforgettable. I knew another one. Lonely, scared, desperate to win even when there was nothing left to prove. Neither of us knew the whole of her, and maybe that's okay. She's gone now. But I'm not, and I won't waste what's left of me trying to become someone else. Be well, Ivy. When the train pulled into the city, I stepped onto the platform with only one suitcase. The air smelled different here. Saltier, more alive, less like memory. I walked through streets that didn't know my name. Past strangers who didn't see my face and think Clara, and that was exactly what I needed. 3 weeks later, I unlocked the door to a tiny storefront on a quiet street tucked between a florist and a bakery. The windows were dusty, the walls bare, but I could already see it. A boutique, personal, story-driven, each piece handmade, carrying its own ghost of the past, stitched not from fabric but from healing. Clothing with memory, with rebirth. I spent days painting the walls, sourcing mannequins, building racks. It felt like building myself from scratch. And then, the sign. It had taken me days to decide on the name. I hung it up with steady hands and a full heart. Ivy and Ghosts, fashion that tells a story. I stepped back, looking at it from the sidewalk. Yes, that was right. Because I had stories now. And not just hers, mine. And they were worth telling.